Meghan Markle has endorsed Donald Trump for US president. Is it true or is it false?
God. Could you imagine if she actually
This is the equivalent of Richard Tice joining the KGB.
Yeah, it really is. Like, I mean, obviously Donald Trump is I think he's on track to win. To win the nomination. I think he might even win the full thing. But obviously he's going through all these kind of court cases and everything. But I mean, what really staggers me is the way the Democrats are kind of going after him is just making them look so anti-democratic.
She's broken her silence once again. And as I've said before, she breaks silence as often as I break wind.
Which is often, let me tell you.
Get out.
No, look, I mean, I don't want to say this again, but I did know Meghan quite well before.
And what was she like?
Met,
Come on, remind us, what was she like?
Harry. Listen, I got on really well with her, real girl's girl, but she was very ambitious. And as I've said, and as I've got as proof on text, she wanted to meet a rich, wealthy British boyfriend. And yes, she did. She won the lottery. But the fact is...
It's amazing, though, that we have a system in Britain is such that winning the lottery of marrying someone involves a ginger. I mean, in no country on earth.
But don't forget, when she met Harry, he was one of our most popular royals.
He was.
I mean, now...
That was about as popular as a poo in the swimming pool.
That's it. And the fact is, she did actually say to me she was interested in politics, and she was a big fan of the Obamas.
Is she going to run for American president?
And you know what? It wouldn't surprise me. She's that ambitious, and she's to be honest, I think she's distancing herself from Harry. He's very unpopular now, even across the pond. He is at the lowest rating going, and his book, I mean, I saw it in the pound shop on the way in. It's really not doing very well. So let me tell you, it would not. I would say yes, this could be true.
You know, my favourite story ever about a book was a good friend of mine, Alex Dean. He's a great bloke. He appears on this channel, but he launched a book about history, which it was actually a really good book. Yeah. And he had a launch in Westminster, and then he decided, because it was a boozy launch, he'd go into work an hour late the next day. And at 10 a.m, he walked past his local charity shop, and it was for sale in the window. It had been launched for 1 hour, office hour.
Tell you, I've been there. I've done a book in it.
Did you end up in the bargain bin?
I was, no, well, not quite, but look, I've got to say, this wouldn't surprise me. Nothing would surprise me about Meghan. She's an egomaniac. She wants power, and she knows she's not going to get that through Harry anymore. So she'll be looking at the political campaign to get, you know, that would suit her. President.
Here then is an extraordinary question. Is this woman so narcissistic, so hypocritical, so self-obsessed that she actually endorsed Donald Trump? Is it true? By the way, no criticism of Donald Trump. It's fair to say she's not previously been a big fan. Is it true or is it false?
I'm going to say that this one's false.
It's absolutely false! OK, so to Ben Habib, first of all, before I ask you a question, this week there's been a poll out that says that you're going to cost nearly 100 Conservative MPs their seats. You must be pretty delighted.
I'm utterly delighted. When I joined Reform UK, I said the reason I was joining them was to make an electoral impact, and in particular to destroy the Conservative Party, which is no longer Conservative. It's gone Liberal Democrat. And so in Parliament at the moment, you've basically got two halves of the same, two sides of the same coin. Labour Party, Conservatives...
He wants to say two cheeks of the same coin.
There's a slight pause.
He was just thinking, am I allowed to say that? Yeah. Don't worry, Ben. As we always point out, remember, it's 10 o'clock on Saturday night, remember? You're getting old, you're forgetting what time and day it is.
Yeah. But I'm delighted, and they need to be taught a lesson.
The big danger in this election, the reason I've not renewed my Conservative membership, is that if the outcome of this election is that Conservative campaign headquarters remain the predominant force on the right of British politics, the problems in this country will never be solved.
Absolutely, and they're not on the right. I don't know what being right-wing, by the way, means anymore, but they don't stand for small state. They don't stand for lack of intervention in the country. They don't stand for the guardianship of the private sector.
No.
They don't stand for the democratisation of the economy, which is allowing you to keep more of your own money as you make it.
I know, and it's become a major problem for me. Right? When I didn't earn anything, I didn't give a toss. Now I feel like I've been
yes. Well, you are being and then, complete open borders, unskilled labour coming in, undercutting British workforce. This government does not stand for the
Look
United
at Pete's
Kingdom.
face, though.
I know. He's a tribal Tory. He's a tribal Tory.
It's very far from that.
Pete, it's fair to say that whilst you are a good right-winger, you are more sceptical of reform, aren't you?
I wouldn't say I'm sceptical of them. I just think that the problem, I'm a pragmatist, and my problem is those 96 seats that reform is going to cost the Conservatives is going to keep Labour in power for not 5 years, but 10 years.
But how do you know reform won't win seats?
Because I look at data, and data tells me that you're not going to win a single seat to the next generation.
3 months ago, we were polling 5% in the polls. We're now polling 10%.
With respect, but I think the polling on reform is massively higher than it really is.
Well, let's see.
But is it not? They're saying if we vote for reform, we're giving a plate to Keir Starmer. But in actual fact, I think for me, I am now, who voted Conservative before, is going to vote reform.
Well done, Lizzie.
No, I am. Because
I've
the
got to say
Conservatives, as you said, now are the Liberal Democrats. They're no longer Conservative.
I see it completely differently, Lizzie. Well, not completely differently, but slightly differently, in the sense that I believe that Keir Starmer is going to win the next election. So this is a historic opportunity for people who genuinely believe in the values of this country and patriotism in this country to vote whichever way they want and make no difference in the election, save for the fact that they will actually now give a kicking to the people who are refusing to take action, the Conservative Party. That's my view.
Right.
Just a quick point. If the Conservatives had those 96 seats, you have a very real possibility that Keir Starmer would end up having to make some kind of election pact with the Liberal Democrats, because it would be...
So even better, you think the Democrats have power.
Yes! Is that an improvement?
No, but I'm saying we're going to go back to a hung parliament. Is the reform is more than likely going to cost us what would be a hung parliament, and Keir Starmer would be in power even less time than he would be.
Even if you gave the Tories a majority, what you would get is more of the one nation nonsense.
Socialism.
Socialism.
It's one nationism and one socialism.
And what you end up doing is rewarding. You reward bad behaviour.
But what you're doing is
it's like solving.
No, we're not.
Cutting off your
we're not, Peter. We are aiming to get seats. You talk about a hung parliament. We may be the deciding force in Parliament. If you want change, you have to vote for it. There's no point going down a path which you know is going to lead to disaster.
Don't you accept that you are supporting socialist conservatism?
No.
Yeah.
No.
You
are.
No,
not at all.
Tories,
not at all.
The Tories have botched it up.
Don't get me wrong. I don't think the sun shines out of their
botched
backside in any way, shape or form. But I just want a little bit of dose of reality and electoral math kicking in here.
All right, who's going to be worse, Keir Starmer or Rishi Sunak?
Keir Starmer.
No.
Keir Starmer by a country mile.
Because at least Keir Starmer will advocate all the ridiculous crap that both of them are going to do anyway, so we'll be able to argue against him. Sunak denies it's taking place.
Absolutely right. And things may need to get worse before they get better, but they will never get better. They will never get...
I always love this argument that
and that's why the Tories have to lose, because then they will have to improve.
They have to.
Exactly.
Lizzie, the last time that happened...
Keir Starmer is a human billboard. He is not... If he gets in power, let me tell you, people are going to be so disillusioned.
The last time the Tories went into opposition, you ended up with New Labour for 13 years. And look at the mess that made. Are you really willing to risk that again?
But Pete, the problem, every single problem in this country that I can see is related to something that Tony Blair brought in. The Conservatives didn't repeal.
Absolutely.
Don't get me wrong. I agree with you on that. I completely agree with you on that. But again, this is an election year. This is where you kind of have to start looking at things more pragmatically. And I would rather have more Conservative MPs, whether you believe they're real Conservatives or not, in the House of Commons than out.
Are you going to vote for Greg Hands?
I probably will do.
My God, he's the worst of them all. That man has spent his entire career advocating Thatcherism in public and voting socialist at the House of Commons. The man's a disaster.
But the worst thing Rishi ever did with those 5 pledges, he knew that he wasn't able to stop the boats. It's just embarrassing.
He doesn't want to stop the boats. It's easy as pie to stop the boats if you want to stop them.
He's not doing it.
You have to have border control.
Exactly.
All we have to do is say to Uncle Vladimir, say to him, listen, Pooters, if you ever want to invade Britain, forget your big boat, get the small ones. Yeah, get a dinghy. Stick all your soldiers on the dinghy. The British are going, we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. Anyway, Ben, this is supposed to be a quiz.
I know, yeah. We got massively sidelined there.
So your question is, and by the way, guess what's happening in my ear at the moment?
That'll be Rishi.
Yeah, I've never seen Pete wound up like that either. We'll do that every week now. Yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah, absolutely. That's our producer, Chuck Thomas. Hey! He loved it. Pete, you went pale and shifted up. Okay, Ben, Keir Starmer has pledged to supervise toothbrushing for all children when he becomes Prime Minister. I think this has probably been badly written, this. I don't think he's going to do it personally.
Well, it's absolutely true. And why wouldn't he? You know, we had a nanny state under Blair. Boris Johnson, with the furlough and everything, took it to what I call a wet nursing position. And now he's going to come into our bathrooms and tell us how to brush our teeth.
Absolutely.
This is state intervention gone mad. This is the direction of travel of the country. Personal agency has been thrown right out of the window. All of us are being infantilised. None of us can be trusted to go to the loo on our own. It's an absolute travesty. We need to obliterate this political class. Conservatives have got to go. Labour's got to go. And you've got to have Reform UK.
Stephen, how worried are you about this idea of the state being involved in absolutely everything you do in your life?
It is definitely not for a lawyer to express an opinion on it. If that's what people want, then that's their political choices.
Oh, come on, Stephen.
Can I just say, we have wars going on. We've got the high cost of living. We've got the postal scandal. And Keir Starmer wants to talk about brushing his teeth. The teeth of school kids.
What
and let me
the
tell you, the one thing that Keir Starmer should look at is quality of leadership. That's the one thing that's decaying. It's not the teeth.
He hasn't got leadership. Did you see him on Laura Kuenssberg last week?
That was painful.
You know, all he did was a series of U-turns on previous declarations. He is Mr. U-turn, and he hasn't even got to office yet. And he's U-turning. He's going round in circles.
He is the biggest. He is Captain Flip Flop. But he actually got this idea from Biden. Did you know that? Because he's long in the tooth.
The one Biden, I tell you what, if Biden doesn't know he's Biden anymore. He thinks he's a duck quacking around the Mediterranean.
No, but I think there's another side to this story because it was part of a range of policies that were to do with children and young people's health and all the rest of it. Because apparently one of the biggest reasons for admissions into hospitals for kids between 6 and 11 is tooth decay. And I actually think this is actually more the Labour Party trying to not talk about the NHS. Because my big problem with the Labour Party and the NHS is they won't tell us how much they would pay junior doctors. That is one of the biggest crises facing our NHS at the minute. It's all these
NHS.
Yeah, the NHS.
If you say our NHS, you're leaving. You're leaving. I'm sorry, it's not. There are certain.
I just see it all the time. It's just awesome.
There are certain lines you don't cross in my studio, and it's the NHS. Right? Can I tell you something? How can you reform a public institution when on its 75th birthday they got together in Westminster Abbey and prayed to God to thank for its existence?
Like it's a shrine. It's actually a service.
That was
but
crazy.
what's worrying about this brushing the teeth? It's going to cost £9 million pounds to the
You're
government.
kidding.
And also, with schools at the minute, you're lucky to get pupils in the classrooms. The teachers have got enough on their plate.
Well, this
and
is
it's the
the thing.
responsibility of the parent.
I actually rather admire the teachers' unions, which is something I never thought I'd say on television.
He's turned into, oh my God, it's your local MP, Greg Hands. He says he loves the teaching unions too, and high tax, and small boats. That's why he's a member of the Tory party. Thank you very much, Greg. Well done, big man.
If you let me finish the sentence, it's because they actually came out and said that this was a bad policy. The teachers' union said that they didn't want this policy because they just said teachers don't have the time. It involves more work, basically.
But it's a gimmick,
it's got to be done as part of these kind of free school breakfast clubs that they want to do. But my problem is the word free in that. They're not free. They're being paid for by the taxpayer.
Exactly.
So, but the Mayor of London's got them here. But the thing is, you've got to have like families from very wealthy backgrounds abusing the system because it's not. It's literally for any kids.
Yeah. So what's going to happen is the school breakfast club. What's going to be the topic every day? Black Lives Matter and transsexualism for 5-year-olds. And if you can self-define as a black transsexual, then you'll be absolutely in. You'll be absolutely in.
And you have to declare that all your forefathers were slave traders and Winston Churchill was a white supremacist.
Yes.
We should hang our heads in shame over the history of this country.
Yes. Yeah.
We should open our borders, welcome all those who our forefathers subjugated because we owe them a debt of, a financial debt. A human rights debt. I mean, the whole thing is gone bonkers.
Absolutely. Come on, well done. Stephen, clap.
Come on. You've got very nice teeth, though, Stephen. I have to say. He's obviously brushing very well.
Keir Starmer's paid him a visit.
I'll tell you what, come on, Keir. Get involved, just at the back there. Get me the electric one. OK, so as Keir Starmer said, he's going to get toothbrushing supervised in schools. Is it true or is it false? Ben?
It is true.
It is absolutely true! Parents who refuse to let their children change their gender will face up to 7 years in prison in Scotland. Now, we've seen something similar in Canada already. Is it true or is it false?
Well, I mean, Scotland is definitely testing the boundaries of devolution. And I think that is probably what people need to notice. It looks to me as though the Scottish Government is setting up for another time when the UK government will have to veto it. And really, that's what's going on, because this looks again like they've transgressed over this same issue that they intervened on last time, and that the UK government is going to have to come in and say, no, you stop this.
This is unbelievable.
And it does look provocative.
Just to be clear, Stephen, it's always difficult to know how to introduce you. I mean, Meatloaf lookalike is one of them. But also, we introduce you as being a writer at The Spectator, but you're also quite a senior barrister. So you deal with these sorts of things all the time, don't you?
I am called a senior junior, which is quite fun. I've always enjoyed that as a phrase.
Well, it's a bit of both, isn't it? It's like non-binary.
But I'm not in the trans debate in any realistic way. I'm aware that lots of people are. I try and just stay out of it as best I can. But it does seem to me that this is another time when the Scottish government really wants to pick a fight with the UK government.
Lizzie, are we not worried about the following proposition that time and time again parents are being disempowered when it comes to their own children? I personally strongly believe, and I've said this before, my mother, when I was a baby, overruled medics and forced me to have further medical treatment that saved my life. Now, I don't believe that mother's instinct is always better than real medicine, but I believe there's a role for both. And we're just ignoring parents completely when they ought to be really in the driving seat.
Yeah, of course the parents are in the driving seat. You can't give it to a child. Look, at the age of 25, your frontal cortex is only fully developed. You can't. And as a mother, this really scares me. And for Scotland, haven't they learnt their lesson with Nicola Sturgeon? I think it's unbelievable.
Well,
they clearly haven't, because they took Yusuf Hamza after.
Oh, exactly.
But,
they actually had a qualified candidate in their woman, didn't they?
What amazes me is that Hamza Yusuf is personally opposed to abortion, but he's strongly in favour of allowing anybody to do it. Similarly, in his own family, presumably he would be against people being trans, but he wants to inflict it upon Scotland. That is a real... I mean, it's really disgraceful, isn't it?
It is disgraceful.
Sorry. I was going to say, I would completely agree with Stephen. I actually think this is another independence argument. It's nothing, and this is what annoyed me about when Nicola Sturgeon did it. This has nothing to do with trans people at all. It has nothing to do with trans kids. This is literally about Scottish government picking a fight, because when you look at the polling, the kind of no to independence is gaining speed. The SNP are struggling against Labour, and they're doing anything to kind of keep their core vote together. Under the polling that has just come out this week.
Nicola Sturgeon's garden is trans. It's actually a garden, but it's self-defining itself as a crime scene.
No, just really quickly, on when it comes to the trans kid stuff, when we talk about this, I think the real argument that we're actually talking about is age of consent. It is, when does a child become an adult? That's what I think a lot of this really gets to the heart of. And I think I completely agree with you, Lizzie, that this idea that, a 12-year-old could be making these decisions without the parent being involved at all, I think is criminally negligent.
But I totally agree with you. They're using the trans community, who should be treated with kindness and understanding, but they're using it as a political football.
Parents who refuse to let their children change their gender, are they going to be subject to up to 7 years in prison in Scotland if Hamza Yusuf gets his way? Is it true or is it false?
I think that is true. I think that's the Scottish proposal,
It's unfortunately absolutely true.
That was The Woke That Was continues after the break. Welcome back to That Was The Woke That Was.
Nestle is under fire to stop producing Milky Bars after campaigners claimed that white chocolate is racist.
This wouldn't surprise me, because I'm getting so sick of this woke nonsense. And sadly, if Keir Starmer does get in, we'll have more of this, because we're not allowed to say White Christmas. We're not even allowed, we have to say Happy Holidays. And it is getting just ridiculous. And it really wouldn't surprise me if this was true.
The thing I always find concerning when we have these kind of questions is I can't tell what's real and what's parody anymore. Because things have just got so out of hand that even the most bizarre thing, it turns out to be true.
So milk is racist?
Yeah, it's just...
No, milk is racist.
Yeah,
No, stop, everyone, stop. we have had this before, that milk is racist, because apparently white people are not lactose intolerant, whereas many people across the rest of the world are lactose intolerant. So offering people a glass of milk is apparently racist.
It's bound to be racist because cows are responsible significantly for climate change. Yeah. They talk about man-made climate change. Actually, it's the flipping cows who are doing all the damage. So we're gonna vilify cattle.
But surely the solution to cows creating climate change is to eat them.
Yeah.
Which I am happy to do.
You can't eat them. That's right wing.
Yeah, that's right wing.
They have to be culled.
So is Nestle under fire to stop producing Milky Bars?
I'm going to say false on this
It's
one.
absolutely false! OK, the laziest little animal in all of Christendom took last week off for no reason other than lying, burping and farting in its own filth. It's the woke rabbit! Right, woke rabbit, why were you off last week?
Look, you've slandered me. I was protesting.
So, what were you protesting about? I don't know why I'm even asking this question.
White chocolate being racist, obviously. Right. Hello. Milk being racist, cows being racist. I think white chocolate should be abolished and dark chocolate should be called chocolate of colour. And milk chocolate should also be called chocolate of colour, and that's it.
You have a non-binary chocolate?
Non-binary.
OK. Right, OK. Well, what are the scores then, woke rabbit?
Ben Habib is winning.
Yay! How pleased are you about that, Pete?
Yes.
OK. To Pete.
Yes.
Violent crime on the London Underground has risen 75% in 2 years under Sadiq Khan. Is it true or is it false?
Only 75%?
I have to say, do you know, I was amazed when Sadiq Khan, who, by the way, I think the worse Sadiq Khan is, the more likely he is to be re-elected. Because when there's problems in London, he's got all those press officers to blame government. But he turned round and he said that knife crime was increasing in London because of Boris Johnson. And you think, but Boris Johnson was your predecessor, and admittedly, he's the Prime Minister at that point. Yeah. But how can you literally say, after I took over from Boris Johnson, knife crime rose because of Boris Johnson? This man's all over the place.
I think this was quite a damning one, because I think crime at the London mayor election and at the general election will be a major issue, particularly violent crime. And I have to admit, here in London, it is just getting on a hourly basis. There is one story after another. I think since he became mayor, I think it's just over 1,000 people have been murdered in this city. I think that is staggering. What I found most interesting was Sir John Rowley, the head of the Met Police, was being questioned by the city of London, and they were talking. He was basically saying, "Oh, we've got a recruitment problem because there's a story going around at the moment that they're cutting the number of murder detectives." Which I think is staggering given what's going on. And he said, oh, it's because Westminster won't give us the money that we need. But I'd like to point out to people that for a detective inspector at the Met, they're paid roughly about £46,000. The same position for diversity and inclusion is the same wage.
Wow.
Really?
Wow.
And that is what they're choosing to recruit.
So presumably,
that's the
Pete,
point.
the solution is Howard Cox.
Well, I really like Howard, I have to admit.
Oh, I thought we were going to stir the pot.
But that is the worry. Who is competition? Because I'm sorry, Susan Hall is not up to it.
And
I don't think so. And who's the competition? Why haven't the Tories got a strong competitor against this
Howard
horrific
Cox.
Mayor
Howard
of
Cox
London?
calls a parish council soon.
Yeah.
Which I think is a bit...
No, but what is awful, my boys are now scared to go on the tube because stabbings, no one will do anything. Sadiq Khan says, let's not stare on the tube. Let's do some staring and Ulez.
Lizzie, you were the victim of a really quite serious crime the other day. Why don't you tell us all about it?
Yeah, it was horrific, actually. I just got back from a trip away and I was upstairs having a bath and someone tried to break in, two lads downstairs. And if it wasn't for a passing farmer that saw them outside who called the police, literally, I don't know what would have happened.
And they found a gun in the car?
They found a rifle in the car, as well as a lot of farmers, stolen equipment, livestock, you wouldn't believe it. And they literally...
So they found livestock in the car?
Exactly. And they sped out of my drive so fast, went down my verge, through my gates, and flipped their car. And the
Whereabouts
police,
is this?
it's awful in Hampshire. This is happening so much in rural areas, and it's actually gone up 22%, and it's costing £49.2 million because these are gangs targeting houses and farmers, and it is very, very
they
frightening.
perceive that they're not going to be held to account. You know, the criminal justice system, I'm sure Stephen will confirm, turns on the confidence of people knowing that they will be caught if they transgress and they will be punished. If that confidence in the system breaks down, thievery and burglary and, violent crime will increase. That's the only way it's going to go.
Well,
Stephen, how worried should we be about the criminal justice system?
Well, there is a point that I make repeatedly, which is that we have, for the last 30 years, we have thought that the solution to everything is to pass a new law.
Yes.
But a law on its own achieves nothing.
Yeah.
Laws without enforcement do not exist. And what we have to ask now is, are we living through a period of actual enforcement, or is enforcement decreasing?
Yes.
No, I publicly chastise the Metropolitan Police because they are allowing lawlessness to exist on London streets.
The cuts to the police in terms of numbers and in terms of funding has definitely had an impact on crime not just in London but across the UK.
Because you haven't got your local bobby anymore.
But what I will say though is, with the money that the police have been given, and it's not just London, it's everywhere in the country, I look at where are they actually putting that money?
Yes.
And I think this is the bit that people keep forgetting, is that they still have very big budgets, and for me, they're choosing to fund things that don't need that amount of funding. So I always think that, we should probably maybe have few people going through people's Twitter accounts, trying to find offensive tweets or whatever, and actually get the bobbies back on the beat.
Yeah.
I think that it's about choices.
Reform UK would resolve that, wouldn't it?
It would.
Yeah.
Absolutely, this
we
is the
would.
thing. I don't actually know what reforms stand on now.
You
Oh,
don't
the crime
know.
No,
We've got a massive set of policies.
Absolutely not. A bullet point is not a policy.
But you see, the story that they haven't looked after the police. And look, in my village now, we are our own detectives. We have our own Facebook page.
Yeah,
If there's any
those are
skullduggery,
everywhere now.
WhatsApp group.
I would
we used
love
to have
it.
the local.
I would love it. Miss Cundy, like Miss Marple. Going around just trying to...
Well, we're seeing that right across
But
the
it's
country,
true.
the springing up of private security.
Exactly.
All retailers now do it. Any
Yeah.
significant retailer has their own security force. They're
But
not
if
But
relying on
if you
police.
remember the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea constabulary, this concept that the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea didn't have any policing from the Met. So what they wanted to do was claim their historic right to set up a police force. And then the Police and Crime Act 2000, I think it was, came along and removed that right of people to set up their own police services. And so what happens is, effectively, the police don't want to police, but they've made sure it's illegal for you to make your own provisions.
But you see, villages like where I live are taking it into their own hands. That's what, because that's the only
I'd say
way.
now,
And
Lizzie, that is one
without
of my
the
big
farmer,
fears.
letting me know and the police know, God knows what could have happened to me.
Like I say, Lizzie,
Somebody's just said the words Lizzie Lanty.
Thank you very much.
No, that's
Worst joke ever.
Talking about this is becoming one of my big fears, because we're seeing it with these people chopping down the ULEZ cameras and stuff of a rise of vigilantism because people feel that the streets aren't being policed properly, and I think this is a real concern, particularly in major cities.
But something what Ben said about there's no punishment, and shoplifting. We've got shoplifting epidemic. It's costing $9 million a month,
Horrendous.
and no one's getting sentenced.
People are emboldened.
So, Pete,
Yes.
Violent crime increased by 75% on the Underground. Is it true or is it false?
It's true.
It's absolutely true! OK, Peterborough has been voted the most soul-destroying town in the UK. Is it true or is it false? My mate's the MP for Peterborough. It's not that bad.
Well, I don't think Peterborough is that bad.
No.
I'm in property. My day job is, when I'm not politicking, I'm running a property company. And we've got properties in Peterborough, and Peterborough's all right. And it did pretty well, actually, under one of the Conservative policies originally in 2012, 2013, which was the conversion of offices to residential, permitted development rights. So a lot of stuff went over to residential in Peterborough, which was the right thing for it to do, because a lot of these towns, including Wellingborough, where I'm standing, has seen its economy hollowed out by the movement of people on a daily basis to London.
But I think Ben's right for once for a Reform candidate.
He's a communist! He's a communist!
But no, I do think that we need to actually look at properly investing in these towns, because when you walk around many of them, they are dying. I know we talk about the death of the high street, but my God, when you go to some places, it's just charity shop, empty shop, another charity shop, this, that, and the other.
Well, that's from lockdown, Pete.
I do think lockdown.
I reckon the worst town in Britain's got to be Wigan.
No.
Oh, come on!
No,
everybody knows when your town centre has 5 kebab shops.
Oh, it's glorious.
No.
Well, that's one of the upsides.
Good football team, though.
Yeah. Sorry. Wigan pathetic and not a...
I'm just trying to help him out.
You're not helping, Lizzie.
So what are we going to do about Wigan? I think we should be tough on Wigan and tough on the causes of Wigan.
The only reason you don't like Wigan is you're from Lee, which is nothing but a glorified bus stop in Wigan.
No, I'm from, and this is one thing that I bet Reform UK would deal with if they got into power. I'm from one of the other towns. Right, 1974 when all these towns got put together, and basically what happened was one town gets asset stripped, Windsor to Maidenhead, Lee to Wigan. There's loads of examples, Morecambe and Lancaster. And of course, one town got asset stripped and the other town became completely dominant. I think it's a disgrace and we should get rid of it. Ben, do you think Reform will get rid of that?
Well, Reform will be a sea change for this country.
Yeah.
What we will do is deregulate, allow people to build more cost-effectively, to renew these towns, give people more money in their pockets so they can actually spend locally, and you will see a complete resurgence in these historic market and indeed new towns like Peterborough.
Yes.
It all sounds lovely, but you have to win a seat first.
And we will win seats.
Says the man from the Wigan Conservative Party. Unbelievable. So how many years have you been smashing your head against the wall? Good God.
Quite a few times.
I'll tell you what, a Wigan Conservative decrying people for not winning. What will they think of next?
At least we tried.
Anyway, has Peterborough been voted, because I know you don't agree with the principle, has Peterborough been voted the most soul-destroying town in the UK? Is it true or is it false?
It sounds like it's true.
It's absolutely true! Nigel Farage has said Labour will hold power for a decade if they win the next election. Is it true or is it false?
Well, you do get a lot of these predictions, and although I don't like to comment on politics, I just remind people that in 2019 it did look as though the Conservative Party was going to hold power for a very long time.
Yes.
And things happen. That famous line, events, dear boy, events. Things just come along and
there's a political theory that comes about now because of the level of media and social media we have, the great speeding up, where crises will now become bigger and that will happen faster than ever before. Do you think that is true?
I don't personally know. I'm a bit like, I prefer the ancient Greeks. I tend to the view that humans never really change. And so history is just the same people, just cast in different roles. And so I tend not to think these things are true, but we certainly seem to be living through something quite fast. And to have gone from 2019 to where we are now does feel, and I mean, it is a political comment, but it does feel quite a big
jump.
Change. It's a big change.
For the worst.
Pete, let me ask you this. The Conservative Party, who we've comprehensively slagged off, and rightly so, during this show, they win the election in 2019 under a leader who not only did they get rid of, drum out of Parliament, but then say they wouldn't even put on the candidates list to be a Conservative MP again. And they then hold a leadership election, which they then give the premiership to the loser of that leadership election, and things go wrong. How could they not have expected to be in this position?
Well, my thing is always, when Boris Johnson became leader of the Conservatives, I said the only person that will bring down Boris Johnson is Boris Johnson. I don't really go with this whole coup thing. Purely because when you look at the polling, Boris Johnson's personal rating, the thing that actually put him into office, was at the lowest level it has ever
But
been.
Sunak's is now lower, isn't it?
Yeah,
So what we've done is we've gone for an inferior option.
Yeah, and this is where I go back. I think for like about 6 weeks of the Conservative Party election, I said the only people not taking this contest seriously were the Conservative MPs who put Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak on the final ballot.
And he backstabbed Boris and parachuted his way into that.
I keep hearing this, and I just don't agree with it.
He made his video for the campaign to become leader 9 months before Boris
I'm pretty sure, Ben, I bet you've got one hiding on a hard drive somewhere.
Well, I mean, mine would be an entirely legitimate exercise. But he was gunning for his leader.
Of course, yeah, but this is
So that's a
the
coup.
nature
That's
of
a
political
coup.
No,
That's
it's not.
the nature of
Listen,
political
I've always
animals.
said the only one advantage of having Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister is that Rishi Sunak will not conspire against the Prime Minister. That's the only advantage.
I'm
But he's
sorry.
got no backbone. He's like a jellyfish in a
sorry,
Prada
if
suit. I'm
roles were
sorry,
reversed-
Peter. They
He's
have botched
if
it.
the roles
The
were
Tories
reversed,
have
Boris
botched it.
Johnson would have
And
stabbed
Nigel will
Rishi
come
quicker.
back in 10 years' time. Hopefully he'll give all pints free. But I think he did a great job in the jungle.
Rishi
And
Sunak-
he won a lot of the
Nigel.
younger voters. I thought Nigel
Rishi
Farage did
Sunak
brilliantly.
is the rubbish Roland Rat. Right now, I accept that I'm the rubbish Mike Graham, right? But at least Mike Graham's a towering figure. Roland Rat's just crap.
Rishi Sunak increasingly looks like Roland
He
Rat.
does look like Roland Rat.
His face is elongating as he holds office for longer.
That's right.
And those tight suits.
Come on, Pete.
Looking at why the Conservatives, I think, have kind of fallen
they're
apart.
rubbish.
No, it's not.
'Cause they're
It's
rubbish.
because
They botched
the
it up.
right of the Conservative Party are utterly incapable of doing anything. Let's be honest. Since Boris Johnson came to power, can you really say that we've had any right-wing policies? Boris Johnson rode the coattails of the right of the Conservative Party and governed more centrist than any other Prime
Because it's
Minister in history.
dominated by one nation Liberal
It's-
Democrat.
It's not that dominated.
Peter,
It's not that.
You cannot select an MP in the Conservative Party now unless Conservative campaign headquarters have confirmed that they are a left-winger.
Yeah.
I disagree.
They
with that. I
have
disagree.
left the Tory voters in the political wilderness. They really have.
Oh,
because
don't get me wrong. I'm not
that
agreeing that
used
there's
to
some
vote
kind of wonderful
Conservative. I now totally feel let down. I am the political wilderness,
and
and
this
I'm
is-
thankful that we have reform.
Yeah.
Because
Thank you,
yes,
Lizzie.
I
Even though you can't pronounce it properly.
Reform. Reform, yeah.
Reform. Reform is what they do with cheap ham.
It is.
No, but they are the answer because Conservatives have let us all
No, but
down so much.
going back to the question when we talk about the keeping Labour in power for 10 years, the reason for that is that it's predicted that the swing from the Conservatives to the Labour Party will be over 11%, which is the biggest it will have ever been. And that is my concern, is that because you don't
Is
have
that your
any
friends, the socialists in the Conservative Party,
Yeah, we'll
might
be
lose?
I'll be out of a job.
OK, so has Nigel Farage said that Labour might be in for a decade? Is it true or is it false?
I suspected that is what he said.
It's absolutely true!
That was The Woke That Was continues after the break. Welcome back to That Was The Woke That Was.
Diane Abbott has proposed that all school leavers should receive the same results to avoid discrimination against those who are less intelligent. Is it true or is it false?
Well, I think if this happened in her day...
Andrew!
I think if this happened in Diane Abbott's day, she'd probably still be able to fail somehow.
Yeah. Well, I said this last week. It always makes me laugh the way Diane Abbott goes, at school, people used to think I was thick, but I proved them wrong by becoming a Labour MP. Oh, interesting.
Anything this woman says is just
What is 5 plus
laughable.
5? 86. Well done. Well done, Diane.
Look, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. But what I feel so sad in schools today, that they don't like winners. It's all about the competing. And it's so good to win and be rewarded for winning.
Stephen, you came from quite an ordinary background. Obviously,
Yes.
you went to Oxford. I think you did history at Oxford.
Law.
Law, OK, but you've got a big interest in history. You're somebody who's on the more academic side of life. Do you think that people like you get the opportunities that perhaps you did? Because I think there's a major worry that now the haves and the have-nots are just pulling further apart.
It does feel as though that things are pulling away from people. The other thing I like to point out is the immense burden on the young. So the act of getting a graduate job now is almost a job in itself.
Yeah.
The old days, and forgive me then if I'm sort of singling you out as someone slightly older, but the days of a covering letter and a CV have long gone.
Yeah,
long
I'm
gone.
not sure I even did that.
Well, exactly. Like,
No, what he did was
Now, don't do that.
But it was much easier. You had the milk round, you were recruited.
Yep, and the
Firms
burden
came to get you, Yeah.
the burden we are placing on young people is absolutely unprecedented, and at some point it will probably snap. That's my little prediction, because it is grotesquely unfair on them. And of course, if you come from a privileged background, you have much more support. You have parents who are able to help you and assist you. You know people who are able to help
The
you
other
and assist
thing,
you.
Stephen, if I may just interject for a second, is that the system has made it very hard for employers to discern who they should and shouldn't employ,
that's true.
because it's all about equal outcomes.
Yes.
Everyone's got a degree. A-levels have been dumbed down. Degrees have been dumbed down. So you don't know.
I've got a friend of mine who's an admissions tutor at Oxford, and he said that it is soul destroying when 50,000 identical applications come in.
Yeah.
And they're just thinking,
So how do you
what
do
on
it?
earth do I do with this?
I mean, you have to look at some of the major kind of corporations. I know the big four accountancy firms, they're looking to do this, is to drop the entire graduate scheme itself. Because they just said it's a complete waste of time because everybody's got the same degree. And they actually say they spend more time unlearning what you've learned at university to actually do the
This
job.
is all Tony Blair's fault.
Yes,
Okay.
this we do agree.
Yes,
Okay,
it is,
so-
I'm just going to say it is Tony Blair's
It's all
fault.
Tony Blair's
It was
fault.
education, and instead of putting, kids into apprenticeships. And,
Absolutely.
And I always need a plumber. I never can get one.
She's had a plumbing done. Anyway, Diane Abbott has proposed that all school leavers should receive the same results. Is it true or is it false, Lizzie?
I really hope this is false, so I'm going to say false.
It's absolutely false!
Thank goodness.
OK, we're going to do something that we've never done before. We're going to go through loads of questions, but we're going to get one sentence on each of them and the answer. So to Pete, students in New York have been forced to stay home this week because 2,000 migrants are living in their school. Is it true or is it false?
I know this is true. I think it's absolutely disgusting. I watched the video of these kids being marched out of the school while a bus full of illegal migrants into America was shipped into the school. I thought it was absolutely disgusting.
OK, it's absolutely true! So to Ben Habib, your quickfire question. Disney has been accused of going woke again after releasing a new movie starring a deaf Native American superhero with one leg. Is it true or is it false?
Well, I've given up watching a lot of Disney stuff for the fact that it's gone woke. So I have to come out and say, absolutely, it must be true.
You have to come out, Ben. No. OK, you're saying it's absolutely true! So to Stephen, London has ranked the slowest city in the world for the second year in a row. Is it true or is it false?
I fear it's true.
It is absolutely true! Let's go to Lizzie. America's top car rental company is selling off 20,000 electric cars because customers will only rent petrol. Is it true or is it false? I'll tell you what, electric cars are the worst technology for the environment because they're heavy metal.
Well, they are, and they're rebuilding car parks because they're too heavy. A bus exploded in Wimbledon this week, just near me, and I have to say, the truth hurts. Get it?
Hey.
I think this is true.
It's absolutely true! OK, so they've now said to me that I'm going too fast. So to Pete, a Welsh farmer was offered a trip to a lap dancing club by an energy firm if he agreed to have giant wind turbines put on his land. What? Is it true or is it false? What was the thing that was rotating there?
Oh, God. Never do that again.
A strange fellow in Stringfellow.
Hey! I loved Stringfellows in the day. It was great, wasn't it?
No, I can imagine this being true because, these kind of companies that will just throw stupid amounts of money because, let's be honest, they're all backed by the British taxpayer, and they'll just throw this money around and they'll just try and just to get any kind of wind turbines anywhere because people don't like them. I don't really have a problem with them. I don't see what
I have to say what
we're
they've
not
been
agreeing
doing.
on anything today.
Pete, what they've been doing in the Lake District in terms of killing rare birds has been just unbelievable.
Don't get me wrong. I would rather them not be there. But the way some people get really wound up about them, I don't quite.
Is that because they're attached?
But
Pete, I'll do that again.
I'm not. Stop.
You love that, don't you? You love that.
The farm had more energy after the lap dance.
Yeah. No, I made a joke about a lap dancing club once that didn't make it into the Evening Standard. Can I tell you what it was? The Mayor of London was thinking of putting a lap dancing club on Tooley Street, which is where City Hall was at the time. And I said, if you want to observe a couple of tits on Tooley Street, look no further than Ken Livingstone and Lee Jasper themselves. Which the Evening Standard said, we're not putting that on the front page. We're not putting that on the front page.
That was quite good for you.
So lap dancing with the Welsh farmer, Lizzie.
Yeah, well, I'm just happy he didn't bring his sheep shears with him. It could have got dangerous.
Do you remember the Welsh farmer who went to Snoop Dogg concert?
No.
Yeah, I remember
one?
that actually.
So he grew the biggest turnip in the world, and Snoop Dogg wants to meet him when he was in Cardiff because he said, I grow my own vegetation and I want some tips. And it was on Sky News, and the Welsh farmer goes, well, I had a smoke with him. And, I don't normally smoke. And they went, I hope it was only tobacco. And it wasn't, actually.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance to watch that clip on YouTube, it is absolutely hilarious.
Brilliant. He gave some advice on like miracle growth.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Unbelievable. You know, our producer used to live next door to Snoop Dogg, and he said you always knew when he was around because it was this waft of
Yeah, I can imagine.
Unbelievable. Okay, so Pete, has a Welsh farmer been offered a lap dancing trip? Is it true or is it false?
This is that preposterous. I'm going, it's true.
It's absolutely true! So now for the final scores, it's the Woke Wabbit! So what are you upset about this week, you communist?
I'm not really upset, actually. I'm quite happy. I get to see my favourite evil right-winger, Ben Habib, future Prime Minister of the country.
He's the future Prime Minister, is he?
Apparently.
What about Pete?
Pete is going nowhere.
So I'm told that you think that Pete has been very rude to Ben Habib.
Well, he's been outrageous. Obviously, Pete is a massive so that's the first problem. He doesn't believe in Reform UK, which, to be fair, nor do I. But I see a great deal of potential in Ben, in that 1 week in the Woke Wabbit We Education camp, and you know, he'll be the best communist in the world, I think.
Do you think so? I think so.
I can see it.
Okay, well, what about Stephen? Do you think Stephen will ever be a successful communist?
Not so much.
That's because you can't re-educate him.
No, exactly.
He knows everything already. Okay, well, Wabbit, what are the final scores?
Come on.
Ben Habib is on 1 million points. Yay! Everyone else is on 0.
Hey! So congratulations to Ben Habib. Thank you so much to Steven Barrett. Thank you to Lizzie Cundy for sitting in. And thank you to Pete Barnes, who's been disgustingly rude to the future government of this country. I'm off now to defect to Reform UK. Goodbye.